Ever notice how the kinder you are, the more people assume you'll bend? Today we'll fix that. In the next few minutes, you'll learn how to stop being everyone's doormat and start commanding the respect and power you've been giving away. Kindness carries an almost religious aura in popular culture, as though gentleness were proof of an enlightened soul. In truth, kindness resembles a coin whose worth is minted not in heaven, but in the market of human self-interest. Dispensed without calculation, it is as useless as counterfeit currency, spent sparingly and in the right places. It purchases allies, silence, and time. The first step toward mastery, therefore, is to strip the sentimental glaze from the concept and examine its mechanics coldly. Ask not whether an act of kindness feels good. Ask what it buys, what it leverages, what obligation it plants in the recipient's mind. Where sentiment demands generosity for its own sake, strategy demands generosity only when return on investment is plausible, measurable, and swift. To see how quickly indiscriminate kindness decays into weakness, observe any environment where hierarchies compete: the office corridor, the family gathering, the online forum. The person who reflexively offers help, concessions, or even compliments becomes the group's emotional pack mule. Requests accumulate on his back because he has taught others that the cost of extracting aid from him is negligible. Soon, favors cease to be favors; they are reclassified as entitlements. He finds himself resented when he withholds what was never formally his duty to give. That resentment exposes the paradox of kindness. When offered universally, it breeds not gratitude but contempt. People despise what they can effortlessly command. Contrast this with the operator, who calibrates benevolence like a trader calibrates risk. He monitors the supply of his niceties, the way a jeweler monitors the market price of diamonds. A compliment emerges from his lips precisely when it will amplify his authority, perhaps to cement a wavering alliance, or lower the guard of a rival on the verge of negotiation. Because such kindness is rare, it sparkles. Its infrequency signals deliberation. Deliberation signals power. Recipients recognize that they are being granted something unusual, and they treasure it, if only for fear that the next opportunity may not arrive soon. Scarcity alone, however, is not enough. The cunning commander also tailors the form of his kindness to match the psychological vulnerability of his target. Offering public praise to the chronically insecure subordinate secures her loyalty more cheaply than a raise. Arranging a discreet favor for the proud executive allows him to maintain face while owing a private debt. In both cases, kindness becomes an instrument that shapes behavior downstream. Like water directed through canals, it nourishes fields chosen by the engineer, leaving others to wither. The message is clear: you do not water the entire plain. You irrigate only those plots whose harvest will be stored in your granary. Yet another dimension of strategic kindness lies in its timing. Deliver it too early and it loses leverage. Deliver it too late and it looks like an apology. The optimal moment often coincides with a tension point, when the other party's uncertainty peaks. A well-timed concession during contract talks, a thoughtful gift on the eve of a board vote, a sympathetic ear after a public embarrassment. These gestures land with disproportionate impact because they enter a vacuum of need. They transform your silhouette in the recipient's mind from competitor to indispensable ally, blurring boundaries that might otherwise harden into opposition. Note, however, that every act of kindness, no matter how cunning, depletes a finite reservoir. Even the most disciplined strategist risks cultivating dependency if he becomes the sole source of relief for too many. Dependency begets expectation. Expectation begets entitlement. Entitlement begets revolt the moment supply dips. Therefore, an advanced practitioner offsets generosity with deliberate displays of austerity. After granting an audience and solving a subordinate's crisis, he may withdraw for a time, allowing rumors of his unapproachability to circulate. The silence resets market value. When he re-enters, the price of his attention has risen again, and those who seek it approach with caution instead of complacency. Some will protest that reducing kindness to economics drains society of empathy, but that protest is itself a testament to the power of narrative. Empathy is a virtue chiefly in stories told to children. Among adults, it is a negotiable commodity. The wise ruler understands that reputation for fairness need not arise from unrestrained largesse, Rather, it arises from balance, visible ability to both wound and heal, to grant and to deny, to warm and to chill. Fairness is perceived when your sword and your open hand appear equally ready. The subjects relax not because you are always kind, but because they know your kindness is calibrated, and calibrated kindness is reliable, detached for a moment from human relations and study the natural world. The sun does not bathe the earth in constant daylight. Darkness, too, is part of its governance. Rivers flood and recede, forests burn and regenerate. Cycles of abundance and scarcity define ecological stability. By mimicking this rhythm, alternating measured warmth with strategic withdrawal, you embed your authority in the very expectation cycles of those around you. They adapt to your pattern, organizing their hopes and fears around the possibility of earning your next favorable gesture. Even in personal relationships, the principle holds. The lover who showers compliments daily sees their effect dull. Each word drops value until they float like cheap confetti. No one bothers to collect from the floor. Instead, the lover who intersperses distance with intimacy, the thoughtful silence before the precise, unexpected praise, engraves that praise onto the beloved's memory. Emotional economies function on the same iron laws as financial ones. Inflation erodes meaning. Restraining kindness is a hedge against emotional inflation. Ultimately, treating kindness as tool does not require cruelty, it requires hierarchy of purpose. Your foremost loyalty is to your ambition, whatever its domain: career, influence, stability of a household, endurance of a legacy. Kindness serves that ambition or it is discarded. When aligned, it becomes a lubricant to reduce friction between gears of power, prolonging the engine's life without dissipating its force. The Narvi advisor tells you to act from the heart. That sincerity will shine through, and that people will reward your good motives. Yet every court, boardroom, and battlefield testifies to the opposite truth. Power bends not to private virtue, but to public appearance. A ruler may harbor the most benevolent designs, but if his face betrays hesitation, his throne wobbles. A commander may burn with patriotic zeal, but if rumors paint him as inept, his soldiers desert. History does not crown people for what they meant to do. It crowns the architects of potent illusions. Perception is the currency that commands allegiance, fear, and envy, while intent is a diary locked in one's chest, silent, unseen, irrelevant. Begin with the primal mechanics of the human mind. Our ancestors survived by reading quick visual cues, friend or foe, predator or prey. Millennia later, the instinct persists. We draw sweeping conclusions from fragments. A firm voice registers as competence, expensive clothes as success, measured silence as depth. These signals require neither honesty nor substance, only calculation. The courtier who masters surface dominates the impulsive masses who judge books by covers. Employ that impulse. Never attempt to reform it. Observe how reputations solidify faster than facts can travel. A single theatrical gesture, firing an incompetent minister in public view, smashing a prototype on stage to announce a breakthrough replacement, donating a fortune before the cameras, echoes louder than a decade of quiet diligence. Once the narrative hardens, even contradictory evidence struggles to dissolve it. A man branded decisive can linger in indecision without detection, while a man branded uncertain will have every swift act discounted as luck. Therefore, shape perception early, with bold strokes, until your chosen image ossifies and begins to govern others on your behalf. Control over symbols multiplies this effect. Crowns, corner offices, title cards, verified badges, each is a totem that shortcuts judgment. People internalize hierarchy through symbols more readily than through reason. To ascend quickly, seize or imitate symbols that imply altitude: a seat at the head of the table, the address of a prestigious district, the sponsorship of a respected elder. These trappings do the whispering, so you can save your breath for commands. When authenticity police arrive to question legitimacy, they will already seem like dissenters challenging an established order. Because perception thrives on contrast, conceal your intentions beneath layers of ambiguity. The obscure oracle attracts more pilgrims than the transparent clerk. By answering a question with a wry smile or a cryptic metaphor, you allow others to project grandeur onto you, filling the vacuum with interpretations that flatter their hopes. Ambiguity is not emptiness. It is a mirror that forces viewers to gaze at their own reflections, crediting you for the wisdom they invent. Meanwhile, your true designs rest untouched, protected by the mist. Cultivate a cadre of heralds, those who repeat your myth with religious fervor. A message delivered by multiple mouths feels self-evident. The ancient tyrants subsidist poets, modern magnates subsidist influencers, and friendly journalists. Do not merely perform, choreograph the chorus that narrates your performance. If hostile voices arise, drown them not necessarily in censorship, but in abundance. 10 favorable stories will muddy one accusation, leaving the audience fatigued and happy to accept the simpler, more flattering version. The theater of perception demands scenery changes. An image, no matter how compelling, stales if left static. Refresh it with carefully staged evolutions. The austere reformer who reveals unexpected magnanimity at a holiday banquet. The reclusive genius who suddenly answers questions in a live forum. The iron-fisted CEO who discloses a vulnerable childhood anecdote. Each pivot renews fascination and prevents observers from boxing you into a single, decipherable pattern. Mystery preserved is power preserved. Even failure can be alchemized through perception. When circumstances force a retreat, announce it as a strategic redeployment. When profits fall, frame the dip as an investment in future dominance. The public, unfamiliar with granular details, accepts the headline summary you supply. This is not deception for its own sake. It is narrative triage. Bleeding openly invites sharks, so paint your bandages gold and declare them armor. Understand, too, that perception is fractal. Nations watch leaders, ministers watch generals, clerks watch supervisors, lovers watch each other. Your subtleties cascade downward. A private sigh of exasperation may seep through walls and mutate into rumors of crisis. Conversely, a deliberately visible late-night session at the office can spark tales of your tireless dedication. Even if the piles of paper are blank, assume you are always on stage, act accordingly. Yet beware the mirror's curse, believe your own performance and you perish. While projecting confidence, nurse doubt like a hidden scout, sending it to patrol for blind spots. Outsiders must see the monolith, you must see the cracks before they widen. Solicit candid reports from those immune to your charisma. Reward them for brutal honesty delivered in privacy, and ignore the flatterers who quote your slogans back to you. Perception rules others, reality still rules outcomes. Loyalty is not born from love. Love is soft, conditional, and quick to fade when tested by fear or ambition. Those who claim to follow you out of affection will be the first to abandon you when your authority begins to wane. True loyalty, durable, practical, and self-enforcing, comes not from being liked but from being respected, and respect is forged in the crucible of severity. A single, uncompromising act of power has more adhesive force than 100 gestures of goodwill. To command long-term allegiance, one must not merely inspire admiration, but instill the kind of caution that keeps followers alert, obedient, and grateful for the structure your presence provides. Human beings crave order more than freedom, especially when the cost of disorder becomes visible. This truth remains buried during times of peace, when leaders can afford to pander and indulge. But peace is fragile, and when disruption threatens, the people do not rally to the gentlest voice. They turn to the figure who demonstrates the resolve to impose stability, no matter how ruthless the method. The hand that crushes the saboteur, punishes the liar, and exiles the betrayer is the hand they trust. For in severity, they detect reliability. They learn that your words are not empty promises, but declarations with teeth. Severity, however, must be deployed with precision. Random cruelty weakens, calculated harshness strengthens. A wise leader strikes only when necessary, but when he strikes, he must do so completely and publicly. Half measures breed resistance, decisive punishments break it. A conspirator who is simply warned may gather courage to try again, but one who is humiliated or eliminated sends a lesson echoing through the ranks. In such moments, the true audience is not the offender but the observers. It is they who absorb the message. A deviation brings cost, and loyalty preserves safety. The psychological mechanism at play is simple and ancient. People fear pain, social exile, and uncertainty. When you become the dispenser of consequences, you occupy a position of moral gravity. Just as a child tests boundaries until discipline defines them, adults also seek lines that must not be crossed. Draw those lines with blood when needed. The memory of a single execution will discipline an army longer than years of encouragement. It is not violence for its own sake, but violence as punctuation. marking the sentence so that all who read it know who is writing the story. A leader who avoids conflict in the name of harmony does not eliminate conflict. He merely transfers it from the surface to the shadows. In time, resentment festers, rules are bent, and conspiracies are born. When betrayal finally erupts, it does so with a strength made possible by years of unchecked corrosion. The smart sovereign understands that order requires constant pruning, and pruning requires the blade. A dead branch left too long poisons the root. And when that poison spreads, even the loyal begin to question their allegiance. If you do not demonstrate that treachery is punished with certainty, your silence becomes permission. But punishment must not be cold and mechanical. It must be dramatic. Human memory is shaped not by logic but by emotional impact. A whispered reprimand is forgotten, a staged dismissal, a public rebuke, or a symbolic stripping of titles burns into recollection. When you act, do so in a way that tells a story. Let the moment live in gossip, in hushed tones, in wide-eyed retellings. This myth-making effect amplifies the weight of your authority. Soon, the very idea of crossing you becomes heavy with imagined consequences, even in situations where you remain unaware. Yet severity must also be bounded. If your wrath becomes constant, the population adapts, not with obedience but with desperation. When cruelty becomes routine, people cease to fear it and begin to rebel against it, just as they revolt against prolonged hunger or captivity. Therefore, once you establish the fear, let it rest. One powerful punishment can last years if left undisturbed by contradiction. Show clemency selectively only when the display of mercy will reflect your control, not your softness. True mercy is a luxury you can afford only after dominance has been proven. Give it too soon, and it will be mistaken for retreat. There is an art in balancing presence and distance. After enacting a firm judgment, withdraw. Do not linger like a beggar seeking approval for your decision. Your silence becomes part of the ritual. It tells the world that you do not explain yourself to those beneath your station. This distance fosters a useful paranoia. People begin to imagine what else you are capable of. They speculate, and speculation is more potent than fact. They begin to police themselves in the absence of your command. In environments of competition, such as organizations, political factions, or even households, those under your rule will test the rules periodically. If they sense your standards are negotiable, they will begin to exploit you. Therefore, make your intolerance visible. Let your followers know that betrayal will not be tolerated, that laziness will be exposed, that deceit will be answered, not with words, but with judgment. Over time, those who remain by your side will be the ones who find strength in structure. Their loyalty will not be built on personal affection, but on shared understanding. You bring order, and order protects them from chaos. Severity, when used as strategy rather than impulse, does not push people away. It binds them to you through the unshakable logic of consequence. It is not brutality that secures loyalty, but clarity enforced by strength. Your role is not to be feared at every moment, but to be known as the one who can be feared if the lines are crossed. That knowledge lingers in the minds of those who follow you, shaping their behavior more effectively than any speech, incentive, or appeal to emotion ever could. Authority is a delicate illusion, easily shattered by too much proximity. To command effectively, one must be seen, not fully known, heard, but not always available, understood in principle, never entirely predictable. Familiarity may breed affection, but it also breeds entitlement, and nothing erodes authority faster than being perceived as common. To maintain power, you must learn to construct an atmosphere around yourself that invites attention but discourages intrusion. This is the art of controlled distance, a disciplined balance of visibility and separation that keeps others orbiting around your influence without ever touching its core. The impulse to connect with subordinates, allies, or followers is strong, especially when one seeks trust. Modern culture prizes transparency, accessibility, and open-door leadership. But transparency, for all its sentimental appeal, exposes your mechanisms, and what is fully exposed is easily dismantled. Power depends on the perception that you possess something others do not. Insight, judgment, will. The more you reveal of your inner workings, the more you forfeit that perception. Mystery fuels authority because people fill in gaps with speculation, and speculation tends to inflate your stature rather than reduce it. Consider the dynamic between rulers and their subjects. When a ruler mingles too freely, jokes too often, and shares personal sentiments without restraint, the crowd begins to see him as one of them. This seems benign, even virtuous, until crisis strikes. In moments of uncertainty, people do not look to their peers. They look to figures who appear to stand above, who project calm from a higher plane. If you have trained your audience to see you as familiar, they will panic with you instead of taking direction from you. The leader who has maintained distance, on the other hand, can step forward in crisis with unshaken poise and restore order simply through presence. Controlled distance also acts as a psychological filter. When you are not constantly accessible, others must deliberate before approaching you. This forces them to prioritize, to distill their message, to weigh whether their concern is truly worthy of your attention. This filtering process protects your time, but more importantly, it trains others to regard your attention as a scarce resource. Not an entitlement, but a privilege. The perception of scarcity adds weight to every interaction you allow. A brief word from you carries more impact than an hour of conversation from someone they see every day. This strategy does not require coldness or disdain. On the contrary, your rare appearances must radiate intensity, focus, and control. The idea is not to distance through neglect, but to become a presence whose influence extends even in absence. A ruler who is rarely seen, but widely discussed holds greater sway than one who is omnipresent and casually dismissed. Appear only when you choose, and every appearance becomes an event. Speak only when it serves your agenda, and your words will carry the echo of deliberation. Even in close alliances, a certain level of detachment preserves the balance of power. Too much familiarity erodes the natural asymmetry that authority requires. If those around you begin to treat you as an equal in every regard, they will eventually feel entitled to your resources, your time, and even your deference. This shift is often subtle: jokes that cross a line, demands framed as expectations, personal problems treated as your responsibility. To prevent this, you must cultivate a kind of emotional diplomacy: cordial, attentive, but never fully porous. Let them feel your warmth, but not your vulnerability. Let them sense your interest, but not your dependence. This principle extends to your responses as well. Immediate replies, open schedules, and informal exchanges may seem harmless, but they communicate availability. And availability is the enemy of awe. The more reactive you are, the more you appear to follow rather than lead. Controlled distance allows you to set the pace. You choose when to respond, how to respond, and whether to respond at all. Your silence becomes a tactical weapon, able to provoke anxiety, reflection, or increased effort from those who seek your favor. In times of conflict or internal competition, controlled distance becomes especially crucial. If you are too close to one faction, you alienate the others. If you are too friendly with subordinates, you empower them to question your decisions. By remaining slightly above the fray, you preserve the appearance of objectivity. You become the figure who sees more, because you are not entangled. This detached vantage point allows you to arbitrate, to command, and to act with authority that others instinctively respect, because it seems informed by a wider view. Controlled distance also fortifies your emotional discipline. When you immerse yourself in the personal concerns, dramas, and insecurities of those beneath you, your judgment is compromised. Compassion turns to bias, loyalty turns to favoritism, and clarity turns to confusion. By keeping a boundary between yourself and the emotional fluctuations of others, you preserve the capacity to make hard decisions without hesitation. You are not unfeeling. You are governed by something larger than mood or moment. This distance must also be reflected in the symbols and rituals surrounding you. Where you sit, how you speak, the frequency of your interactions. Each of these is a lever that adjusts perception. The great leaders of history understood this instinctively. The throne is elevated, the voice amplified by silence, the approach carefully staged. Today's equivalents, offices, email timing, cadence, are no different. Every contact point is an opportunity to signal separation. Not arrogance, but altitude. Not dismissal, but design. In the end, controlled distance allows you to remain untouchable in both senses of the word, insulated from petty influence and exalted in the minds of those who follow you. They may not know your every thought, but they trust your presence. They may not sit at your table, but they orient themselves by your shadow. When people must reach for you, they reach with reverence. And reverence is the foundation on which durable power is built. The world does not reward the well-meaning. It obeys the well-positioned. In a landscape ruled by perception, strength, and disciplined distance, kindness becomes a liability when wielded without purpose. If you move through life seeking universal approval, offering your time, energy, and forgiveness without calculation, you will become a servant cloaked in virtue, respected by none, used by all. True power does not reside in being liked, but in being necessary, unpredictable, and respected. To escape irrelevance, you must abandon the comfort of being seen as harmless. Let your presence carry weight, your silence provoke thought, your decisions shape outcomes. Be strategic in your mercy, precise in your punishments, and intentional in every gesture. Reveal little. Say less than you know. And when you do speak, speak as though your voice carries consequence. Because if you've positioned yourself correctly, it will. This is not cruelty. This is survival. The ones who rise are not the softest. They are the sharpest. And those who stay at the top, they learn to stop being kind to everyone, not out of hatred, but out of understanding. Understanding that power is not granted. It is taken, built, and ruthlessly maintained.